So we're back for another episode of Devil in the Detail. As you can see, I'm in my AFCON shirt. I am ready. This is Bafana. 15 years old, but it still fits. I look good. My brother Susu is in AC Milan. He hasn't been happy the past 2 weeks, but hey, something has to give. So he went with Milan. Susu, hi.
Oh, I've been okay the past 2 weeks. There's nothing to be worried
You
about.
you you
Nothing
you
to
had
worry.
the chance to stay top of the league and do 2-2 with Sassuolo.
Oh, that one, you see, you have to also take it in context and some of the things. The performance was good. A few disallowed goals. One should have stood. If we had got it, would have been fine. It's those little margins. I'm not worried yet. I'm not
Not yet.
worried yet.
Okay, so
And even
how
though they lost the Super Cup, I'm not bothered because we won it last year. It didn't do anything for us. So it's okay. Let's go home and rest.
okay,
Let's
so
have the weekend off.
Rasmus Højlund can use it to boost his confidence.
I'm happy for him. I'm happy for him.
But talking about a boost in confidence, like the whole week has been not just the whole week. I guess the past 2 weeks, the narrative has centered on Manchester United. If you've been listening, and this whole takeoff, Amorim doesn't like the youth, and that's basically been because of Kobe Menu and him not getting enough game time. Some of the legends also chipping in, and in fact, very interesting pre-match press conference today from Ruben Amorim talking about some of the kids feel entitled instead of sticking their heads down and working, they're not. But I haven't really had time to comment. There's been a lot of heat on Twitter, but I realize that the way the comments are going these days, Twitter might not even be the best place to try and express an opinion because you just don't have enough time to express what you're trying to say. And for a while, it just looked to me like there was just a general push towards outrage because outrage against United is good business on social, isn't it? It gets you a lot of engagement, whether justified or not. And sometimes I feel we were teetering towards just being unreasonable. So Kobe Menu, a lot of people come at me and say Godfrey doesn't like Kobe Menu. I like Kobe Menu the same way I have liked every academy player. My position on Kobe Menu has always been good talent. He had a great breakout season. Has he been able to build on his breakout season? No. Has he needed more time to prove himself? I think for a player who proved himself in his first year and was decent in his second year, he perhaps should be showing more to his coach to say, I am the type of player you need on the pitch. So I have not been sold on the games that I have seen Kobe Menu play. There are those who say Kobe Menu needs to play because he does certain things well. And I ask myself, what are the things that he does well? The difficulty for me when it comes to Kobe Menu is this. He's not a 6, right? He didn't break out as a 6. He broke out in a midfield 3. So there was always a runner somewhere. He's not the most creative player out there, right? Kobe Menu is not known for his dazzling array of creative passes. Kobe Menu is a maestro of the short pass game. 1-2, 1-2s, 1-2s. He will find space in tight spots, wriggle through, play 1-2s, and go. He's not the most athletic. He's not the fastest in the sense of covering ground. So he's not your typical ball carrier like a Rodgers, or like what other players, even like a Declan Rice, who is a proper ball carrier, even though he's a traditional 6. So I then ask myself, for a player who is not really a master of any of the 3 requirements of a central midfielder, he's not a hybrid, he doesn't possess one over the other more than that. I'm asking myself, is the fuss really necessary? Especially when you have a manager under pressure who is trying to win now. And so Kobe Menu becoming the symbol of United's lack of faith in youth, or Amorim's lack of faith in youth. Harry Amos is another one. He spoke about Chido, and he spoke about the fact that Harry Amos was struggling. People tried, I saw somebody like Samuel Larkhurst, who covers Manchester United for the Manchester Evening News, tried to clarify what the man had said. But let's even stick with what he said originally, that Harry Amos was struggling. Harry Amos is the best player of last month for Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah. Who are struggling, to be fair to Amorim, but it doesn't mean Harry Amos himself is struggling. But
yes. But you then ask yourself, what exactly will Harry Amos bring that will change this team for him to become a symbol of a lack of faith in youth? Considering Harry Amos was on the pitch quite a bit last season, we didn't really see anything that tells you, problem solver, world beater on the pitch. So he has to learn his trade. So I look at the whole situation and I'm like, maybe we are overly infatuated with our academy grads. Some are decent. We haven't really had breakthrough players. We tend not to demand the most of these kids in terms of earning their place, because as soon as you mention Menu, what people throw at you is, well, he was in the final of the Euros. He played in that final. He scored a goal in the FA Cup. So why is such a player on the bench? And why is Casemiro playing? Why is Bruno playing? And I'm asking myself, really, you would want a team like Manchester United that is trying to find itself, its best pieces, to ditch the know-how of Casemiro, the know-how of Bruno Fernandes, no matter what you think about it, perhaps the most productive outlet Manchester United has, simply to satisfy...
Let's be honest. He's the most productive midfielder apart from Kevin De Bruyne in the last 5 or 6 years.
Exactly.
It's a fact.
There is a basis for him to be there. What is the basis for Menu? Apart from, he started in the Euro finals and he scored a goal in the FA Cup. People forget, that goal he scored, guess who laid on the beautiful assist for him? Bruno Fernandes. So how does Bruno then become, the enemy? I just don't get what is going on. Perhaps we United fans are a bit confused, but I think they need to let the manager figure it out. The performances have been inconsistent. It's frustrating, especially when United could have been second or joint top, looking at the dropped points. And so it's good to go at the manager. He must deliver results. But I think he's trying to find his best way. I'm not going to cut him slack, but to go at the manager because Kobbie Mainoo is not getting games, because Harry Amos is not getting games. Come on. Even Alejandro Balde breaking through at Barca was not getting games. They signed, what's this kid from Sweden? Rooney Badaji. Didn't that kid score against us in Europe last year? Against Manchester United in Europe last year?
At Copenhagen.
That kid barely sees the pitch. This was a kid who was already playing European football and has come to Barca. Who are you comparing him to in Manchester United? Chido Obi is barely doing anything with the under-21s. So I just think United needs to figure it out, perhaps take a chill pill, understand that, look, it's a results game. Youth can come in and do a job. Kobbie Mainoo, I think, will get his time. But to say give Kobbie Mainoo time on the back of him playing a Euro finals, or when he comes in, will look good, the data doesn't really support it. The games we've seen don't really support it. Kobbie Mainoo came on when United were 3-0 up against Brighton to give the team control. That is what he was supposed to come and do. He didn't do that. People were saying, but it was Dogu who made a mistake. It was Lemons who let in Danny Welbeck's free kick. So that had nothing to do with Mainoo. But anybody who watched the game realized that the team crumpled in taking initiative the moment Kobbie Mainoo came on. He was on the pitch against Everton. He was on the pitch against Grimsby when we started. In fact, those who say he was the best player on the pitch against Grimsby forget he only looked decent when Bruno Fernandes entered the game. Until then, Kobbie Mainoo and Manuel Ugarte, who started the game, were totally rubbish. So
Ugarte injured. I don't think I've seen him for a while.
Yeah, no, he's warming the bench happily.
Okay.
He's barely seeing the pitch as well because he hasn't played any proper football. So I think, and then I don't know, what do you think? There are those who say give him games so that he gets confidence. But I'm saying give him games at whose expense? What do you think?
This one is a cultural problem. The reason I say this is that in Manchester United history, their first 2 great European Cup winning sides were based on youth. So we had the Busby Babes giving the impetus to the eventual win in, I believe, 68. Then you have the class of 92 powering Ferguson to the treble. So there's this idea in Manchester United that we cannot have success without Carrington playing a role, without the youth playing a role. There's that cultural thing. this is where I believe Amorim has failed, because I don't think that press conference he did about the youth and kind of calling out Menu, Amas, and Obi was in good taste. That one I can agree that he misstepped with his comments in that press conference. There's a way to go about it, because we see this discussion all the time, but there's a way to go about it. You can say, look, I'm trying to win. I'm trying to build stability. When the team is stable, I can bring the young players in and they will do better. That would have been an easy answer to solve this, and a more political answer. You didn't have to go and say, this guy is struggling here. I think that press conference was in bad taste. That's the first thing. I do agree with you that maybe they might not be the required players, but I also believe because Amorim is so rigid, he's also not going to give these players a chance. And because they are also in their developmental stage, they're also now trying to learn their games. They have been trained in a setting when Amorim is coming and playing something completely different. So they are going to struggle to fit into a system. That one is a given. So I believe Amorim has some part to play. And I don't think that the board themselves, I think this comes also from board level. I don't think there's a board level emphasis on youth, which is why Amorim also doesn't care. And like you said, he's fighting for his job. Why should he be thinking about who players the next manager is going to enjoy? Because if he decides to now give Kobe Menu games and Kobe Menu starts improving, but his results are not improving, is the next manager will come and enjoy Kobe Menu, and he wants to stay in their job. So there's also that dimension of it. So for me, I think Amorim has kind of missed the mark in how to connect to United supporters, which is why the press conference was so off. That's the one thing I will say criticize him for. I'll never criticize a manager for not playing youth players. The reason being is that your job is to win in the short term, number one. Number two, sometimes we know youth players make mistakes. It's part of being a youth player. It's an unavoidable fact of having young players in your team. They will make mistakes. So if a manager is afraid to play youth players, I totally get it. But you have to think long term. And I think for Amorim at this point, I don't believe he has the confidence and job security to think long term. If Amorim was sure they'd finish top 4, right? I'm sure he'd be playing Kobe Menu, knowing that the season coming up where they'll be playing in the Champions League, there'll be more games. He will need Kobe Menu. My personal thing is that I believe also United's youth academy is starting to fall behind the other teams.
Starting to fall behind. It's been behind for a decade. That is one of the things that United fans don't seem to get. I think our interpretation of what our academy is, and generally what everybody else's interpretation of what their academy is. So let's take Real Madrid. Real Madrid have their academy to basically raise funds to support them buying superstars. Once in a while, somebody will come through. They might give you a couple of games. Chelsea, a reasonable amount of their academy players have broken through. But that is only recently. So Chelsea is basically at the reverse end of what Manchester used to be. But even with Chelsea, they're spending a crap load of money on buying established players. Tyreek George, Chelsea fans want Tyreek George and Joshua Champong and all those kids to get a lot more games. But at the moment, they are just reasonable squad players. They understand their role. And they sell a crap load of also those players to other championship teams, Premier League teams, for a lot of money. But Manchester United seems to think that its academy exists to become the first team. And I think that is a notion that perhaps needs to change.
I agree with you. I think right now, a lot of elite teams, about 80% of your academy players will probably never make a meaningful contribution. If 80% is low, 90% will make a reasonable contribution for your first team. But like you said, the academy falling behind just means that some of your players coming up are just not at the same level, because right now, compared to maybe 10, 20, 15 years ago, where we had a lot of Manchester United players playing in the lower half of the Premier League, for example, it's now Chelsea we see those players from. Even Arsenal, we're not seeing as many players. It's becoming a bit better now. It's like they went up, came down, and they're going back up again.
Yeah.
But right now, if you look at the lower half of the Premier League, I think that's where you need to look to see if an academy is working. The lower half of your domestic league. Because look at the Spanish league, full of Real Madrid and Barca, former Real Madrid and Barca youth players, right?
Yeah.
Same reason, we see lots of former Chelsea players running around the championship in the lower half of the Premier League.
Same for Manchester United, actually. A lot
Yeah,
of their
but
players running around League One, especially.
but that's the thing. We don't see them in the lower half of the Premier League, and that's where the problem is. And speaking of Kobe Menu specifically, I actually believe he's a bit overrated, to be honest. And
Thank you. I said this on
it's not.
Twitter, and everybody was coming at me for saying, "Oh, you think Kobe Menu, who played in the Euro finals?" And I'm like, "Why? Does everybody who played in the Euro finals become a generational talent?" JJ Gabriel is a generational talent. Kobe Menu is not a generational talent. Thank
And for
you.
me, him being overrated is not to say he can't be a good player. He can't get 50 or 60 caps for England at some point. But they're talking about Kobe Menu as if he's the next best, he's the next Luka Modric or something. He's going to be a very good player. But I think and I always say this, I believe that because Manchester United has struggled for competent midfield players in the last 10, 15 years, anytime someone decent comes, Man United fans get excited. I mean, that's how I see it. And I believe the same thing happened with Garnacho, an exciting young player who had not quite reached the level. So when he and Amorim fell out, we're like, how can Amorim fall out with Garnacho? You know, this guy is going to be. I'm like, okay, the guy is okay. Like, I think he can get better. I'm not saying Garnacho is like some bum, but at this point in time, Amorim says, Garnacho, go away. You don't have the right attitude for this team. I wouldn't argue. Like, the guy has talent, but is he at the level yet? I disagree. So sometimes I believe that this kind of cultural thing which I talked about earlier with the whole is Manchester United, we love our youth players, can make fans overly attached to some of the youth players and overly estimate their ability and talent level. Like I said, Kobe Menu has shown that he can be a world-class player. Is Kobe Menu currently a world-class player? Probably not. Should Kobe Menu be starting for Manchester United between Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro? Probably not. If Fernandes was moved up and playing where we see Mbeumo and Cunha playing, or Mason Mount, one of those positions, if Bruno was starting there, right? And you say Kobe Menu should start over Casemiro and Ugarte over one of those two, that's an argument we can have. But as long as Bruno Fernandes is playing in that pivot with Casemiro, there's no space for Kobe Menu. And that's okay, because if Kobe Menu was to play, Manchester United will be even more open. Casemiro doesn't have the legs anymore, but he's still 10 times more defensively aware than Kobe Menu, which is fine. You need at least one defensively aware player in there. So you can't play Fernandes and Kobe Menu. You can maybe play Casemiro and Kobe Menu, but you'd have to move Fernandes further forward. Does the coach want to move Fernandes further forward? Clearly not. So unfortunately for Kobe Menu, there's no space for him. I don't think that that's an indication of his talent or his potential. I think Kobe Menu, if I was to rate him out of 10 as a player, I think right now he's a 6 or a 7, right? But when I look at what he offers with his skill set, I don't think he improves the starting 11 at this point, because I don't think he can do Casemiro's job, and I don't think he can do Fernandez's job. So it's just unfortunate for him. But I feel like there's a lot of, I think he starts for maybe 10 out of 20 teams in the Premier League, which is fine. But he might not start for Manchester United at this point in time. So that's okay.
Yeah, and just before we move on to a different leg of the Manchester United conversation, when it comes to me, I listened to Bruno Fernandes' interview with Rio Ferdinand. Absolutely insightful. And for those Manchester United fans and other ones out there, Bruno Fernandes talks about what the coach requires of him in that role that he plays. And since Menu, we have been told, is competing with Bruno Fernandes, when you listen to that interview and Bruno explains, you can easily tell why Kobe Menu is on the bench. 1, Fernandes says the coach is looking for quick bounce passes from the person who receives the ball. 2, the coach is looking for quick passes to the wing backs and also to the central attacking players. And then for that same player to move up the pitch very quickly to become the number 10, and then be able to also run back quickly to become a defensive 8 when the need presents itself. In what world is Kobe Menu going to be able to provide a quick pass to the wing backs? It is not a part of his game. Have you seen Kobe Menu pass the ball 40 yards before? A diagonal? No, that is not to say he can't do it. But in the 2.5 seasons I've watched Kobbie Mainoo, that is not the strength of his game. Are we going to see Kobbie Mainoo launch the ball to Ahmad, run from the middle of the park to get to the edge of the box to become a number 10, play there, and then rush back to be a defensive 8? He doesn't have the legs for it. Again, that is not to say there aren't systems that can accommodate him. But which coach in his right mind, now, elite coach, is going to build his system around that type of player to bring for there to be this kind of pressure on Amorim simply because Mainoo does not play? I just think it's a bit of an overreaction, really.
Yeah, no, completely. Once you describe what he expects Fernandes to do, like you said, it becomes more clear why Mainoo is not playing, which I also believe. For me, when I'm hearing what he's asking Fernandes to do, it's almost like he's created that role specifically for Fernandes, actually.
Yeah.
Because the amount of players who can do that in world football are not a lot.
They are limited.
And we are even seeing Fernandes struggling with the defensive side of the game.
Yeah.
We see him losing his markers quite a lot. So even the role Fernandes is playing, he's probably one of the most suited players to it. But even he's struggling with some aspects of it.
Because he leaves the midfield very wide open.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to Amorim. I honestly am not sure about his system, to be honest. I'm really not sure about it. But that's a different conversation. We've had it a lot.
We need to dedicate an episode to Amorim and his struggles to find a system. I think he talks a good game, but the implementation of the system is weird.
It's definitely getting better.
Let's talk about a different leg to the Amorim conundrum for Manchester United. And I don't know, since we are discussing Ghana things, Semenyo's link to Manchester United, does it make sense for you?
No.
Why not?
Because if he's going to compete with Cunha and Mbeumo, who they just bought, in terms of the position he's going to play, or is he going to play as a striker? Because he's not really played as a striker for Bournemouth. His best football has come more as a winger, playing in that 3 behind the striker, behind Evan Nilsson. So why would you buy him to play him as a striker? It feels like a waste of his talents. Unless you want to move Cunha or Mbeumo into the striker's role, which is also not their game. So you're going to end up with 3 players for 2 positions, and you've paid 60 million for 3 of them. I feel like that's very poor squad planning for Manchester United. Unless they're telling us that Amorim is finally going to change his formation or something. But if you are going to play 3 players behind your striker, Bruno Fernandes still has to be one of them. So that still leaves only 2 positions for 360 million players. I think it's poor squad planning. I think if they wanted to buy Semenyo, they should have bought him instead of Cunha or Mbeumo, instead of one of those 2. Because if you are paying that amount of money and you've just bought 2 of those players in the summer, and you're going to relegate one of them to the bench after 6 months, it's not a good use of money, considering that Casemiro, who doesn't have legs, is still starting every week.
Yeah, but
it just doesn't make sense.
Isn't it a matter, because we've heard him talk about we need an Ahmad on the other side, and it hasn't been Dogu. It cannot be Luke Shaw because he's very brittle. So isn't there a case for him looking at Semenyo and saying, that is my Ahmad on the left, while still being able to accommodate? So basically, he takes up Dalot's role, and that will still allow Cunha and Mbeumo to play, won't it?
Why would Semenyo go to Manchester United to play left wing back?
Because the Manchester United left wing back in this system, as we have seen, spends basically 80% of his game in the opponent's box.
But it's because you are running back. You might have to deal with wingers. I don't even think Ahmad should be playing that role. I think Ahmad's best role is where Mbeumo is playing right now. And they brought someone ahead of him. I understand, look, he's a young player. He'll get his time. Mbeumo too is also a bit older. We don't know when. Look,
Ahmad's finishing is erratic. It's never going to be as good as Mbeumo's. Ahmad's decision making is not as good as Mbeumo's. I definitely wouldn't put Ahmad where Mbeumo is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. His time will come. Ahmad's time will come. There's no issue with him not playing now. But if you are Semenyo, where you are now entering your prime, I don't think Manchester United, as constructed, with the system they are playing and the players they've just bought, is a good fit. I believe the teams you should be looking at I believe Liverpool is a better fit just because I look at him and I think, okay, you are going to compete with Cody Gakpo. You can remove Gakpo from the lineup. That's very
Really?
doable in my opinion. Oh yeah,
Who is removing Gakpo from that lineup and that slot?
I think Semenyo can do it. I'm just looking at them in terms of players, not because maybe Annie Slot and his Dutch connection. Let's forget about that. I'm just talking about player for player.
But you can't forget about it. It is a
No, I'm
problem.
just saying. But you see, Annie Slot, the way he's going, he might not be there next season. So yeah, I'm just saying you have to think about it player for player. I'm not talking about in terms of the manager and his preference, because the manager's preference too can also make a big difference. I just believe Liverpool is a better fit right now. Arsenal, the left wing, we are not really sure of it because it doesn't seem like Arteta wants to play Eze there. So it looks like you're competing with Martinelli and Trossard. I think you can easily compete with those guys. Chelsea, we know they have a lot of wingers, a lot of them not particularly good. She can join that group of wingers and become the best one. That's another option. Spurs too, we are not seeing much from their left side. They have a lot of players there who are not impressing. That's also an option. Even City, I think there's an opportunity for him there, depending on how Pep wants to play it, depending on whether he thinks he can compete with Doku. City is probably the second least suitable after Manchester United when I look at the big six teams, but it's definitely more suitable than Manchester United. I think Manchester United's system is just not winger friendly, first and foremost. And I just feel like after the players he's going to compete with, who they've also spent big money on in the last 6 months, just make it the wrong move, in my opinion. But I believe that if the manager was to change his system or the manager changes, then I can see Manchester United. But if they are going to be playing this 3-4-3, I think he should stay far away.
Okay. Then let's come down to the continent and discuss our AFCON that is, loading. A lot of people tend to diss the AFCON. I love the AFCON. I've covered 8 AFCONs, if I'm not mistaken. So quite a number of AFCONs. And I'm always excited. I'm particularly excited because we are going to Morocco on the back of perhaps the best modern AFCON we have seen, the one that happened in Cote d'Ivoire, and with better facilities, with better TV production, with better digital production, with players who are a lot more globally relevant. This AFCON is primed to become, a next level one. Just your general thoughts on this AFCON and its ability to showcase the growth of African football tactically, because a lot of people tend to associate AFCONs with, physical play. It's not very technical, but I'm saying that is a unique identity of what our game is. The South Americans have their version, Europe have their version. This is how we play our game, and it's beautiful for us.
I even think that whole physicality thing is even overplayed. I think if you've watched any South American football, I think South American football is even more physical than African football. But because they have Brazil, they're technical players in Europe, people give them that kind of, South American football is nice and technical and stuff. But when you watch an Argentina-Uruguay game, it degenerates very fast into a very nasty game. So I think that whole physicality thing, it's
overrated.
I don't want it. It's a bit racist, to be honest, because it's easy to. It's seriously because it's very easy to say, these Africans are just playing physical game. There's no brains in it. Watch enough South American football that when these guys get into finals and deep in the Libertadores, the type of games they play, you will never see those games in Africa. We would never see a CAF Champions League game being played in the kind of cynical way we see South American football being played. But no one sits down to say South American football is not technical, is this. They don't get that disrespect. So that's the reason I say that. And it's because, again, they have technical players, but when it's like these guys wear their national shirts or play in these big games in South America, they forget that they are football players and they turn into brawlers. It's just what it is. It's a cultural thing, and that's okay. So it's okay that our players are also physical too. There's nothing wrong with it. But a lot of our players are very technical. What I would say is we lack players in their boxes. What do I mean by this? I think we don't have a lot of great African strikers, but we don't have a lot of great African goalkeepers. I think those are the two places that African football does not really pull its weight. I don't know why that is, but the goalkeeping talent on the continent is very iffy, and the striking talent is also very iffy. We have a lot of good wingers, midfielders, defensive midfielders, any position you can think of. We have great players, but when it comes to goalkeepers and strikers, that's where we just don't see the talent for me. So aside that, I think African football is just as good as any other football. Obviously, European is at the pinnacle. They have the most money, expertise, and all of that. But I don't think African football is anything we should, talk negatively about. That's the first thing. The second thing is this AFCON, I think, is very important for Morocco. Considering they are going to be hosting the World Cup in about 5 years, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah, in 5 years, they'll be hosting the World Cup. So this is a good test run to see what they can do, what they need to improve. So from their perspective, this is a very important tournament. Just to get some of these things about hosting right and prepare for the next World Cup. Now, looking at their teams.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you can just also put in, I think there are a lot of good teams. I'm struggling to pick who's going to win. If I were to ask you who your favorites were, 3, who are you going for?
Well, we obviously have to go for Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
Morocco and Senegal are Morocco for sure. I mean, we saw them at the last World Cup. Mm-hmm. We've seen them win under 20, under 17. They just won the Arab Cup, if I remember. They just won the Arab Cup. So there's a lot of good talent there. They also have a lot of players playing in Europe at a decent level. So there's a lot going well for Morocco. Senegal in a similar situation. They were the ones who won under 17, under 20, a lot in the previous generation. They are also coming. So there's a lot of good teams. And look, none of us thought Ivory Coast would win. Remember, we all thought Ivory Coast were out.
Yeah.
They even fired their coach.
And
only for a certain somebody to throw his hand and give Ivory Coast a place in the net. I won't mention names. He knows himself. I won't mention names.
It's become one of the iconic moments of the AFCON.
But a lot of people don't realize how important that moment was for the story of the AFCON. Because if that had not happened, Ivory Coast would not have won that. They would have gone out.
Yeah.
Based on their group. So anything can happen with these 3-team qualifying groups. So, and look, I think Nigeria are also a team you should look out for. They'll feel maybe a bit wounded after their whole World Cup issue. I think Osimhen is in great form. I believe he needs to have a big tournament for Nigeria to show that, because we are seeing him score a lot in Europe, but he needs to have that big AFCON to show that he's really the guy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of African players, we see this a lot. You are a good player for your side, but somehow it just doesn't translate to the AFCON. I don't know what it is about the AFCON, but it's very difficult for top African players to have an AFCON where it's like, this is their tournament. I don't know what it is, but it's just difficult for them. So I think Osimhen, I think if he's able to bring his form and have that tournament, it will be Nigeria as my third team for sure. Because, right, Riyad Mahrez has his tournament. He's won it already. He even, I think they don't want him. The Algerians, they are 50-50 on whether he should go. But they are still taking him. Cameroon, I think they're also having their issues with their FA and stuff. We are hearing all sorts of controversy about Eto'o allegedly blocking Abubakar because he's concerned about his goal record. I think it's probably more complicated than the goal record. I think Eto'o, from what we know, he can be a difficult person. And I think that some of these players have had enough. There's all this controversy about the coach and the sports ministry and all of that. So it's typical African football. The disorganization at governmental level permeates to the football level. And that's what I think lets our game down. The bad governance, but it is what it is. So I think for sure, I'll look at Senegal and Morocco, and I'll give Nigeria the third spot for my podium as the teams to look out for.
I am not going to go very far from you on that. I think I would give Morocco and Senegal this one. The Ivory Coast as defending champions. Dark horses, I think the DRC have shown that they have what it takes to bother any team on their day. They have a far more balanced outfit now across the pitch. I think Egypt is more of a one-man side at the moment. They are still trying to figure it out. So I will not.
If Salah is playing the way he's playing at Liverpool, they won't go far.
Yeah. So I'm not. But there's always that one dream team that comes through, and most of the time it's either Burkina Faso or a Cape Verde or something. So we're always going to look out for a surprise team.
I think Benin had a very good World Cup qualifying. They kind of fell towards the end, but I think that kind of you grow. That good
Yeah.
World Cup qualifying experience makes them a team that I think people should not sleep on. I think Benin will be very tricky.
And I'll wrap up with you on this. I'll just give you a minute, so we can wrap this up. You're in Canada. Everybody's buzzing for the World Cup. Ghana is buzzing. The US have been organizing events. You go back to the States as well. Things are happening. Mexico looks to be buzzing. You are in Canada, of course. You are not in a host city, but is there a general happiness, a general feel of a World
You
Cup? Are
know,
you getting that in a minute?
I think Canadians are a bit there's a lot of economic uncertainty and issues. It's reflected in how they are thinking about the World Cup. People are thinking about infrastructure, traffic, those type of things. That's what's dominating people's minds. Then there's also the people who actually like football who feel like Canada has been slighted. When three countries are hosting the World Cup, someone is going to get the short straw. So Canadians feel like maybe they've not been given enough prestige games. You know, they feel like some of the games they've been given and the amount of games they've been given, it feels like US and Mexico are hosting the World Cup and they are helping, if that makes sense. That's how they feel about it. So there's also that. The one thing I'll say is that the potential, if Italy qualify for the World Cup, the Canada-Italy game will be one of the biggest at the World Cup.
Yeah.
Because there's a huge Italian population in Toronto, which is why, sorry, let me pronounce like a Canadian, Toronto. So that's why, if you remember, Giovinco moved to Toronto FC in the first place. Insigne and Bernardeschi followed him because of that Canadian connection. So Italy qualifying, Canada play Toronto at BMO Field in Toronto. It will be a huge game, trust me. It will probably divide the city because you will see the Italian community show out. So let's hope Italy qualifies so we have that moment. But I think the one thing it might help is grassroots football. I think a lot of kids might see the World Cup, get the chance to go to a game and become more interested. I think that's what's helped the US from 94. That's one of their legacies. It helped the MLS grow. Canadian teams are in the MLS, but they still have some domestic football. You should see the Athletic Ottawa versus Calgary final played during a blizzard. So yeah, I mean, football is there, but it's a hockey country for sure. But
Certainly a
they'll
hockey
enjoy
country.
the World Cup because there will be no hockey during the World Cup, so they'll enjoy it.
Certainly one, but let's hope that the Canadians are able to build themselves up to it. Always good having a chat with my AC Milan buddy who is based in Canada, Susu Graham. Thank you. We'll do this again next week.
Next week is Christmas. We'll be able to do it.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see what we can do for the fans. Have a good one, bro.
All right.